On the 1st of May, Ethiopian Airways flight ET-873 was scheduled to land at Zimbabwe's Robert Gabriel Mugabe Airport from Thailand. Unbeknownst to the aviation crew, the events that soon followed would make history as one of the biggest busts in Zimbabwe. On board the plane were two young British citizens identified as 19-year-old Tihaze Darlin Alicia and 21-year-old Taylor Tamara Simone. On the surface, they seemed like any other young couple on a globetrotting adventure. The two claimed to have been on vacation in Thailand when they had the bright idea to travel to Zimbabwe and experience the Victoria Falls. At first, this didn't set off any alarm bells as Zimbabwe has quite the reputation for being a tourist hotspot. The country hosts a staggering 500,000 to 1 million tourists each year, and the numbers keep rising. The young couple seemed to be amongst the statistics and would have been welcomed with open arms. The Ethiopian Airways flight ET-873 was scheduled to touch down at 1800 hours in the evening. The captain notified the control tower of the plane's arrival. The runway was cleared and the Ethiopian Airways flight was granted permission to land. This was all standard procedure and nothing seemed amiss. While the passengers disembarked, baggage handlers swiftly resumed their duties offloading the luggage. Amongst the airport staff on duty that day was a seasoned veteran named Elliot Moyo. He was quite experienced, having been on the job for over 2 decades. This familiarity with his job had honed his senses, and this would play a major role in his situational awareness. For some odd reason, a white suitcase drew his eye and he noticed a piece of silver foil sticking out of the suitcase. He took a close look at the tag on the bag and memorized the name and place of origin. Next to it was another black bag which also had a similar tag and surprisingly shared the same place of origin. Before I go any further, please remember to hit that like button as it goes a long way in growing the channel. Oh, don't forget to subscribe, as if share stories about crime, fatal animal attacks and paranormal activity from all around the world. Now back to our story. When Elliot lifted the bags, he caught a whiff of a pungent odor that was all too familiar. His senses began to tingle and his gut feeling told him to notify customs authorities to be on the lookout. He gave them the names on the luggage tags. Customs authorities knew better than to seize the bags there and then. If they had done so, they could risk spooking the owners of the bags, and this could jeopardize the operation. The decision to let the bags through for collection was quickly reached, but this was after notifying the Central Investigation Department of Narcotics of the looming suspicion. Whilst all this was taking place, Tihaze Darlin Alicia and Taylor Tamara Simone were still oblivious to what was transpiring, and the two went about their business. The couple had disembarked the plane and headed to claim their luggage. The two casually strolled through the airport terminal. Despite all their efforts to stay calm, composed and inconspicuous, they couldn't help but notice the subtle stares they kept receiving. The couple was walking straight into a trap, and it was too late to turn back. With doubt and despair looming over their heads, the two made their way to the customs gate. In a last-ditch attempt to throw off airport officials and the narcotics squad, the two decided to split up, hoping that at least one of them would make it through if things went south. But little did they know, all their efforts would be in vain. Alicia decided he would just bite the bullet and be the first to test the waters. Bag in hand, he walked straight towards the immigration and customs officer with his passport already on display. He put his suitcase on the conveyor belt of the X-ray scanner and proceeded to take off his wristwatch and other valuables in his pockets so he could go through the metal detector. At this point though, his body language was a screaming reflection of his guilt. The customs officer couldn't help but notice the anxiety written all over his face. Alicia's eyes were darting back and forth between the officer and his bag. His palms were sweaty and he kept rubbing them on his pants. At this point the officer was watching as the bag went through the scanner and noticed something odd. There were dozens of silhouettes of tiny packages tightly squeezed in next to each other, and he instantly knew this was the jackpot that they had been told to look out for. He signaled the narcotics squad with a head nod, and they simply asked the gentleman to step aside. They accompanied the young man to a small interrogation room. As Alicia was walking away with the immigration officer and several members of the police, Simone knew the gig was up. She was next in line and her eyes were full of tears. She too placed her bag on the conveyor belt and handed over her passport. Again the immigration officer glanced at her, then looked down at her passport and gave the same head nod. She was approached by the narcotics squad and escorted to a separate room. In the interrogation rooms, both were simply instructed to unzip their suitcases. Just like that, all lay before their eyes. 1 kilogram Ziploc bags tightly wrapped in foil. Each bag contained just under 2 dozen of these Ziploc bags, all containing a strain of cannabis known as Thai skunk. This mother lode can has an estimated street value of $660,000. This left officials stunned, not only because of the quantity but how they had managed to get it onto connecting flights undetected. This is a load that would be expected from seasoned drug traffickers and not two unsuspecting young British citizens. In order to unravel the mystery that lay before them, the Zimbabwe narcotics squad made contact with the British embassy, who in turn would create an open channel of communication with British authorities to uncover the truth behind the couple's lifestyle. The two didn't fit the profiles of kingpins or masterminds with resources to move such weight. A deep dive into their financial records and lifestyles reflected that they had neither the means nor the connections to acquire such huge amounts of cannabis. This led to the million-dollar question. Who were the real masterminds behind such an operation? How had they facilitated the movement of such a shipment without raising alarm bells from Thailand right up to the arrival of the cargo to Zimbabwe? Well, the British authorities would soon shed light on the situation by revealing that this wasn't an isolated incident. Apparently, Thailand has become a favorite for not only British expats seeking to live abroad, but also a safe haven for some of Britain's most wanted underworld figures. Due to the lack of extradition treaties between Britain and Thailand, some key figures in the Britain's criminal underworld have decided to exploit this loophole in the system. By spreading their tentacles across borders, British crime syndicates formed alliances with Chow Pows, which translates to Godfathers, who are regional gang leaders tasked with controlling gang operations according to their respective provinces. Now on to the second question: why use British citizens as mules? The answer to the question is so simple, it almost sounds ridiculous. Remember, in the drug game, the biggest hurdle is always logistics. Moving product from point A to B is a complicated game with a lot of moving parts. The Thai gangs have an abundance of product, but it can't generate any revenue if they can't move it. This is where the British gangsters come in handy. There are 56 sovereign nations that form the Commonwealth, most of them being former British colonies. These countries have good travel relations with Britain, making accessibility relatively easy. On top of that, British citizens have visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to 186 countries. This makes the British passports the 6th-ranked passport in the world. This has made British passport holders prime targets as drug mules. They are enticed by fellow Brits with promises of an easy payday and a sponsored trip, unaware that nothing in this game is as simple as it seems. Those who take the bait pay the ultimate price by losing their freedom.
3 British nationals are facing the death penalty over their alleged involvement in smuggling cocaine disguised as packets of Angel Delight, which they tried to get into Bali airport.
You've probably seen pictures of both of these women who've been arrested over alleged drug smuggling after trips to Thailand. But is it a coincidence, or is something else going on? Bella May Cully is a Teesside teenager who was arrested in Georgia. Charlotte May Lee, she was detained in Sri Lanka on the same day. And the latest is Cameron Bradford, another young woman. She's currently being held in Germany after being stopped at Munich airport.
The rabbit hole goes deeper. If this video gets 500 likes, I will do a video unmasking the major players in the United Kingdom, such as the Kinahan cartel. A crime family that has spread its tentacles all across the globe, formed alliances with powerful politicians and facilitated a pipeline to move every illicit substance. Hit that like button and get this video to 500 likes.